Joining us today, we have Ryan Bean. Ryan is the technology director. He's also the president of the Central Indiana and Indianapolis Computer Science Teachers Association. So welcome, Ryan.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
And technology coordinator, technology teacher, master of technology, and
When you're the
many other
person at
titles.
a small school, you kind of fill whatever role needs filled. Yeah.
there you go.
Sure.
All right, so with computer science and stuff, and what all do you have? I know there's a couple things we talked about that we're going to discuss, and so where do you want to start?
Yeah, so I understand you haven't had many computer science teachers on the show, so I just wanted to start with some really just basic computer science program. Most computer science teachers would already be familiar with this program, but it's just called Scratch. A lot of us are really familiar with it. I was going to show on the teacher end, how do you set up a classroom in Scratch, sort of assign your students into that classroom, so that it's a little bit more education oriented. We're not just going in there and building whatever kind of video game or program we want to, but that it's tracked and more goal oriented. After that, I'm going to talk a little bit about a great program called Tinkercad. This is sort of a more engineering program, but I teach K through 8, and so a lot of my little kids are extremely enthusiastic about Tinkercad. Tinkercad is a 3D modeling program, which is really, really great. It's more kid-oriented, so I think to get kids into 3D modeling is fantastic. After that, I'll talk a little bit about accessibility issues we've been having, and how other schools might be able to overcome having students with no devices, and how have we been able to work around accessibility issues in our own school, and then how we're sort of coming into the new school year and how we're planning to fix that over the summer. So, yeah.
Whew, that's perfect. All right.
Awesome.
Now, Scratch I've seen before, but I know most of my teachers haven't. It seems to be fairly new when I talk to the teachers, and so I'm really excited to be able to see how to set that up.
Yeah, Scratch has been around for a long time, but they're definitely expanding a little bit, I feel like. I can go ahead and share my screen and get started with all of that if you like. Scratch is coming a little bit more into people's view as some of the newest curriculums for computer science coming around now. I think Google's computer science curriculum, as well as Apple's, maybe. Apple's might have a little bit of it, but Google's computer science curriculum is heavily based in Scratch. So now that there's sort of a more established curriculum for Scratch, it's becoming a lot more popular. All right, though. Okay, so this is Scratch's homepage, scratch.mit.edu. Scratch is an MIT program, so we have a group of people at MIT that have created this. They started this a very long time ago for students, and so just picked up since then. This is a great introductory block-based programming. I use this website for grades K through 8. People use it in high school and college though too. It's really great for those introductory computer science concepts. So I can go ahead and I'll just press join Scratch here. You can actually join this as a teacher. So after you go through the account creation, you will be able to make your account a teacher account. After that's approved, you'll be able to sign in as under a teacher account. I think this is my teacher account. Let's hope that it's my teacher account, whichever auto is. And let's check it out. All right, so teacher account. Once your account is approved as a teacher account, you'll be able to establish classes in here. I'll talk about how to actually use Scratch in a few minutes. We're going to get the basics of how to set up Scratch out of the way. The educator resources in here are absolutely great, especially for younger kids or newer computer science teachers. I would highly recommend a couple of these programs in here. The Scratch tutorials are a lot of fun. It's kind of like program cards for kids, and how do you sort of get in there and do really introductory basic programming. The Scratch forums are also very, very good. I encourage teachers to check that out. But let's get into some classroom stuff. So let's go ahead and make a class. So I'll press My Classes. You're probably going to see a lot of classes in here. All my classes at my school, or most of them at least, most of my classes have classrooms in Scratch that we've built and worked throughout the year. Some have way too many students, some have fewer. Let's press New Class though, because most teachers, when they're starting with Scratch, this should be empty. New class, let's call this Purdue Superheroes of Science. I'm spelling all this correctly. Computer science teacher before it's used to autocorrect. What?
Ryan, real quick, is this are teachers able to join with a teacher account for free on Scratch, or is there a fee associated with it?
No fee. Scratch is entirely free. All the programs I'll be showing you today are totally free, so everything is good. Yeah, so Purdue Superheroes of Science, 0 students right now. Give your class a description and all that. But to get your students into Scratch, you can do a few ways. You can add individual students if you like to create students one by one with usernames and everything. I usually use the student sign up link. So you press that sign up link, get a link. I agree. Okay, get a link. All you do is throw this in a Google Classroom or whatever our LMS is. Kids then can click on that link and create their account on their own. That's usually how I do it. You can also do a upload for a bulk add of student accounts, but you can come in here and create your student accounts, or you can have them sign up for it. One other really great thing about having the classrooms in Scratch is the studio aspect, where kids an assignment. So say you need to come into Scratch. I would like you to build a short video game. I want you to build Flappy Bird. Right? We'll do a quick little demo of how to actually use Scratch in a minute. But let's say this assignment is for you to think out the algorithmic processes for how a game like Flappy Bird would work. What is that program? How do you do it? I'll walk them through a little bit of it, and then I'll have them code out the rest. Within our Scratch classroom, I would add a studio that would be called then, say, Flappy Bird. After students publish their games, they're all able to publish them in one sort of cohesive space, which then allows the kids to actually test and play each other's games or animations or whatever it is they're making. So you can get that collaborative aspect into Scratch too, which really I think amplifies the learning. They're able to look at other kids' coding, other kids' programs, give them feedback. I think that sort of inherent thinking about the programs really gets that learning aspect a little bit more ingrained. Any questions so far? I'm not going too fast or anything.
No, not yet.
All right, let's go ahead and make a sample program though. Just do a really basic overview of how Scratch works. I'll just press create up here, and this should just throw us immediately into Scratch. So for those of you who are completely new to Scratch, Scratch is a block-based programming language that allows you to create video games or animations, really anything that you want. We can make a really basic game here. Let's just make this game where our cat, this is called a sprite inside of Scratch. Excuse me. Our cat is going to chase our mouse pointer. Or actually, let's make it a little bit more fun. The cat will chase. Would either of you like to pick what our next character would be?
How about a bird?
Bird. Okay, great. We'll go over to create sprite here. This is sort of like adding a character in a video game. Whenever you think of any video game or animation or movie even, anything that a character is interacting with is usually called a sprite. They have special properties associated with them. That's why you might see things that characters interact with sort of stick out from the background and just look that little bit different. You especially notice this in sort of like old movies like Shrek or old animations like Toy Story, where some objects just look a little bit different. It's because they're actually animated with properties. But let's go ahead and find a bird. You see a bird? Just click animals. How about a dove? That work?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. This is the game called The Cat Chasing the Bird. It's going to be a really great game. All right. So let's go ahead and code out our bird. This code should be really, really basic. Let's go ahead and say all code starts with some kind of event, whether it's a trigger by a button on the keyboard, like when the spacebar is pressed, what do you want to happen? Or when I click the green flag that's hiding in the upper right-hand corner here. When that happens, what do we want to happen next? Well, I just want my bird to follow the mouse pointer around the screen. Right? Pretty basic. Bird will just follow the mouse pointer. So I want it to move. That's a motion, I would say. It's going to point towards the mouse pointer. And then let's say it's going to move 10 steps. Great. So when I press the green flag, it will move towards the mouse pointer. So what went wrong? Do either of you know what went wrong?
Well, he just fell.
Every time I press the green flag, it looks like he's moving towards the mouse pointer. This is where I'd sort of bring in an introductory computer science concept called a loop. What's happening right now is that when I press this green flag, this event, this program I wrote, is only happening one time, right?
Oh.
In order for a program to loop over and over and over again, we need to put that in what's called a loop. So I can click over here on control. We have what's called a forever loop here. A loop in computer science, and a lot of your computer science teachers who are watching this are going to recognize that right away. A loop is an extremely common piece of computer science. They'll be using it constantly, and so they should recognize that right away. I teach loops to students as low as second grade. It's a really basic concept with computer science. Okay, let's test this out again though. All right, now it's in a loop. Our bird is following our mouse pointer around the screen.
Okay.
Okay, pretty easy. Now I want the cat to chase the bird though. So let's click over to the cat. The great thing about Scratch is that you can write programs for individual sprites. Sorry, my friend over there is laughing at my game. That's all right. It's fun. All right. So this program is going to look a lot similar, or very similar to the bird program here. Back on our cat, we want it to start when I click the green flag. Do either of you know what we're going to bring out next?
Loop?
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's fine. Definitely a loop. Perfect. All right, now, students, what would you think goes inside of our loop?
Well, it wants to chase the bird, so you have to tell it where the bird is or something, don't you?
Yes, perfect. Let's go over to motion, and we're going to say point towards, and I'm glad that you imagined that. We're actually able to change that to dove for mouse pointer. So very convenient.
Oh, neat.
Now, behind all of these blocks in Scratch, there's a lot of programming going on. What the kids aren't going to see is the part where it says point towards dove. Usually when you're writing out an actual computer science program, you'd have to tell the computer what the dove is and sort of how to identify that kind of thing. Scratch takes a lot of that complicated background away to make this more accessible to students, which is really great. Right. It will forever point towards the dove and move 10 steps. All right. I think this should work. Let's test it out. Hooray. What is our problem, though?
I caught it.
We caught it. There's no way to lose this game. And I think the cat's moving way too fast. Let's have the cat move just 5 steps instead of 10. And let's make a condition that you can actually lose the game. Let's say that when the cat is touching the bird, it's going to say, gotcha.
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
Next, very important computer science concept. It's called an if-then. Sometimes these are called conditionals. If-thens are sort of saying if blank, then blank. Sometimes you'll hear this called a Boolean as well. This is the base of all computer science, really. If you just have loops and if-then statements, you can really write any program. If our cat is touching the bird, then we will have it say, gotcha. All right. Let's go into sensing. Right away, there's a block called touching, which is extremely convenient. This touching block is kind of cheating a little bit. There's a lot of computer science on the back end that goes into the concept of touching. But once again, Scratch is very kid-oriented, and it's going to right away give us a few shortcuts. But if we are touching the dove, then we will say you lose. That kind of stuff's going to be in looks, and it will say you lose. Or gotcha. Gotcha.
All right.
Our game is finished, and it is perfect. Let's test it. Flying around. Gotcha.
Oh, how cool.
Great. All right, so that's an extremely basic game, but we're able to bring in a couple core computer science concepts of loops and if-thens, which might be defined as a Boolean in our standards or conditional. So yeah, that's just my really quick overview of Scratch. Do either of you have any questions before we move on to the next concept?
I like how easy that is, and I could see a lot of the teachers kind of getting locked up a little bit in trying to figure out where things go. I think the kids would get there faster than the teachers. They're not afraid to fail there, so I like that.
Absolutely. And Scratch does take some getting used to. You can get into things like variables, which get a little bit more intense and complicated. But just playing around with Scratch, you can figure out a lot of things really quickly. If there's something that you want to create in Scratch, you honestly should be able to create it. Anyone who is new to this, I highly suggest clicking on the tutorials page up here. And for some of these, I do these for my kids too. I know for my kids, I almost always sort them out with the animated name. That's almost the first lesson we do in Scratch every year for my second, third graders. It's where they just add the letters of their names as sprites and then animate them in certain ways so that when you click on each one, it has some kind of reaction. So that kind of gives the kids a really basic, fun introduction to Scratch. That's a great one. I would highly suggest also a chase game. It's kind of what we just made, but you want to program with the arrow keys in this one. So you actually sort of define each arrow to have a specific movement, and then kids need to write that out. Once you get into the more intensive things, you bring in a lot of X-Y axis concepts. So kids are actually having to program movements along those X-Y coordinates. Shockingly, I did this year. I taught X-Y coordinates to second graders so they could code stuff. I would say a few of them, maybe 3 in the class actually understood it, but all of them were able to program out movement along an XY axis in Scratch. I think the XY axis concept is a little bit distant from kids once you start learning that in 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. But it's really cool being able to give the kids an actual application to that concept at such an early age too. A few of them were able to plot points along the coordinates, which was really cool by the end of the class. They're kind of imagining how things might move across that plane, which was really, really great. As long as you can teach them positive y goes up, negative y goes down, they can sort of understand the rest of it bit by bit. And as they animate, they kind of form some kind of concept of how an XY axis works on its own. So those chase games can be really, really great. Pretty tough though too. Of course, this is a concept. I did this with a really select group of students, and they picked it up. But definitely be careful with that. The Pong game is really great as well. All these are fun. They're definitely worth checking out. So.
Oh, I like that.
That XY axis, talk about a perfect application to like pre-algebra concepts. Wow. That is
absolutely. I mean, we learn that as kids, but we don't have any kind of place to put it. We don't have experience with that.
Yeah.
So I have heard of people using this in a math class as well to kind of give that sort of application for those kind of concepts. Yeah.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I mean, dang, my math teachers would probably like this if that's going to help reinforce, and that helps make it concrete. That's a great idea. I love that.
Absolutely. All right.
What else we got?
All right, so we can move on to Tinkercad then. Tinkercad is a 3D modeling program. This isn't quite as computer science oriented, but it's definitely a good distance learning tool. You can probably bring in concepts into a lot of different subjects with this program. I'm going to go ahead and sign in. I'm going to sign with my Google account. This is really great because I've used this with my first and second graders who don't have Google accounts at my school. They're able to join a class once you build a classroom, just with sort of a class code kind of thing. So we're able to pick that up pretty quickly. I'll go ahead and sign in with Google.
That's another thing I liked about the Scratch, where we could just give them a code. If you're a middle school teacher with a lot of kids, you don't want to type all those in.
Exactly.
Each class the code like that, and then so they just sign up.
I agree. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. We have this teach block. I don't think I'm on my teacher account. But once you get into Tinkercad, you are able to establish a classroom. That will link through Google, and I believe you can import a Google Classroom into Tinkercad, so it sort of self-generates your students. Outside of that, you are able to add usernames. I think you do have to do it one by one, unfortunately, or with a large CSV style upload. But you can generate your own classroom. I'm not on my teacher account. I logged in with the wrong account. So I'm not going to do that or demonstrate that, but it's pretty simple once you get into it. After you build your teacher accounts, you are able to see other students' projects and build all kinds of stuff. But this is Tinkercad. On your homepage, you can see different things you've built in the past, houses, a lot of houses. I've used that sort of like a demo project for kids, how to get them introduced to Tinkercad. We did like some Halloween pumpkin stuff, just getting them into 3D design. But let's go ahead and try to build out a quick thing. Hey, either of my hosts, what would you like to test build today? All right, great. Hello again. Sorry for the cut. I'm going to introduce you to Tinkercad now. Tinkercad is a 3D modeling program. This isn't necessarily as computer science oriented. This brings in a lot more engineering, shape kind of concepts, but there's a lot of overlap into other subjects. You can have kids build sort of a 3D model of anything. And the cool part is that this translates into 3D printing as well. So as kids are building designs in Tinkercad, these are things that are able to be 3D printed. If a student is able to build out this car, they should be able to 3D print that kind of model. So I'm sure any teachers who have a 3D printer are probably familiar with this program, but the concepts are still really neat, even if you're not necessarily printing it out. I'll go ahead and press sign in, and I'll try to sign into my teacher account. Hopefully I sign in with the right account. Might have to do that later. I'm going to sign in with the wrong account again. That's okay. So I'm just on like a personal account. This isn't my teacher account. Once you get into an account though, you are able to press teach in the upper right hand corner here and follow an approval process to create a classroom in Tinkercad. The benefit of the classroom is that you're able to see students' work. Students do not have to have a Google account or an email account to join Tinkercad. You're able to create student accounts by username. So I use this for my students as low as first grade, second grade, where they are able to log in with a username. So they just get in there, they type in a class code, they're able to log into my classroom directly from that. Students who are in older kids, though, this does synchronize with Google and many other login methods it looked like. So they're able to log in using their Google accounts, which is much smoother. All right, though, let's go ahead and build some kind of basic thing here. You can see a couple of things we built in the past, just basic shapes, sort of introductory stuff to 3D modeling we've done. Let's go ahead and press create, though. And would any of my hosts like to tell me what would we like to build?
Build a hobbit house.
Okay.
Is it a haunted house?
Hobbit house.
A hobbit house. Oh gosh. All right. Those have rounded tops, don't they?
Uh-huh.
Okay, cool. This should be fun. All right. So this is Tinkercad. Right away, we have this sort of 3D plane. If you click down with the left and the right mouse key, you're able to sort of pick it up and pull it around. So right away, you're working with a 3D plane. This is a great concept. There's a few programs that do this, but I think Tinkercad does it smoother than some of the other programs. We're in the basic shapes category over here. So let's bring out the base of our hobbit house, which should be, I'm just going to take a round roof and kind of stretch it out, I think, and that's going to make our hobbit house. So I just click and drag that shape out from the area over there, put it right about, put it over there. Okay, great. You can see a lot of numbers popping up here. Again, kind of reaching back to the math teacher concepts, there are a lot of great geometry things you can do with Tinkercad, where they give you really precise measurements as well as degrees of rotation too. Whenever you click on any of the arrows around the shape, you're able to rotate it on a 3D axis, which is great and gives you really precise measurements. And you are able to type in really precise things as well. So any teacher working with geometrical concepts, I would highly suggest using this program, as you're able to get a really precise actual picture of what you're trying to create or imagine. But let's bring that back to 90 degrees. Hopefully I didn't throw it off too much. All right, that's fine. All right, let's build our hobbit house though. I'm gonna scroll in a little bit. Okay, hobbit house for Bilbo Baggins. We're gonna bring up our roof. The white cubes around the corners of the shapes will have you stretch out the shapes. Let's bring it a little bit this way. Right about there. All right, that's a basis for a hobbit house. Maybe he wants a little hobbit shed on the right side, though. I'll spin this one around. That degree angle is about right. Throw that into the other shape. Bring this up a little bit. There's a little shed on the side. Coming together. A little bit more igloo-ish right now, I guess. Let's add a quick chimney, maybe. I think hobbits always had the chimneys, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll bring out his cylinder here. Smush it down a little bit. And we should just be able to click and drag this up onto the roof. To raise shapes, you have this arrow on top. Clicking that little arrow on the very top will help you raise the shape or even lower it through the floor. Let's bring it up to a height though. Height is a little bit hard to see in Tinkercad, so you can kind of take the height of a shape, like our shape here, which it gave me a height though. I don't think it is right away. But I'll just kind of pull our chimney onto our Hobbit house. Oops. Everything's kind of meshed together a little bit in Tinkercad. All right, there we go. Chimney. Perfect, right?
Very nice.
Perfect. And let's throw in a quick door. I always tell my little kids, you don't need to do anything special with the door. Just take a box and smush it into the front, and it looks like a door. Great. Really, really basic. But this is Tinkercad, a great little program to help kids get introductory concepts of 3D design. You can get a lot more extreme with Tinkercad. This is, of course, extremely basic. Anything like text. One of the first things I usually do is, instead of basic shapes, move over to, say, dinosaur or skeleton. Actually have the kids build out a dinosaur or a skeleton. That just helps them get sort of more acclimated to the movement concepts. When we look at something like our dinosaur, I give you all the bones. Kids have to move and position those so that it would form a dinosaur. So to get the kids more acclimated with the clicking and dragging, the scale and the size, everything, that's a really good one. I haven't seen Smithsonian yet. Do you mind if I click on that? This is new. I haven't seen it. Oh, that's so cool. Museum pieces. Excellent. Okay. Very cool. There's a lot of really great stuff to see in Tinkercad, though. You're able to browse their index of objects as well. I'm going back to the Tinkercad homepage now. And so you're able to view other people's designs. If we click over on Gallery, you can see some of the things people have made. Of course, my things are not that detailed. I'm not very good at Tinkercad. Some people, looking at the things down here, of course, are much, much better than me. So building an entire cruise ship in Tinkercad, or any of these really neat things. Really cool thing about Tinkercad is you're able to click on some of these designs, and you're actually able to download them yourself to print them out in a 3D printer, or you're able to remix it on your own. So some of these, if we find one, I don't know what these are, but you're able to, sometimes it does say you can't make a derivative work, and kids are actually able to click on this and then start playing with that object in Tinkercad themselves. Really cool. So, any questions about Tinkercad from your end?
No, that is a really neat tool.
Yeah, it looks like something to play around with.
Yeah, it's really fun. Maybe not necessarily as directly educational as some of the other programs, but definitely a good learning tool for a number of subjects.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
I like that.
Yeah, that's fine. Last thing I wanted to talk about before I went was the sort of accessibility issues. I'm going to unshare my screen so we can have more of a conversation kind of thing with this. That's fine with you guys. All right. Cool. Let's go with those first few tools. So we've been in remote learning for a long time now. My school is called Sense Charter School. It's a small charter school in Fountain Square. We have about 550 kids. The school is 95% free and reduced lunch. Right away, when we had to start doing remote learning, we had some extreme issues off the bat. My school is not one-to-one for technology. We don't have that kind of capacity, one of those things in place yet. And so looking at students from home, they really couldn't get on assignments. We really were having a lot of trouble reaching our kids. I would say we did a survey. About 51% of our families have internet at home. Very, very low. So having 49% of your students not having internet it's impossible. It's very, very difficult to teach from that kind of connectivity. Most of my families do not have laptops or computers at home as well. Most of the kids are having to work either off of literally their Xboxes, PlayStations, or their parents' cell phones, unfortunately. So we had a lot of circumstances where there were, say, 3 kids in a family, a first grader, a kindergartner, and like a 4th grader. If they only have one phone and we have to do Zoom calls for each class, none of the classes can overlap. You have to have availability for every class for every student. So our schedule became very, very thin. We weren't getting a lot of time with the kids. I teach a specials area kind of rotating class, and that became extremely condensed. And the schedule, we were forced to have it so that I was teaching all my students grades K through 8 in one Zoom session each week, which of course, especially when you're teaching computer science, 8th graders are on a different level than kindergartners. That didn't work out too well. But it's what we had to do given our availability of devices. So a couple great things we were able to do though, sort of like workarounds for this kind of situation. A lot of the teachers, we were all recording our sessions. I was going to demonstrate Screencastify, but it seems like some of you already had that on your podcast here. So I was recording a whole lot of sort of mini lessons, literally like just little 5-minute little bits that they could come back in on their own time and record. Since everything had to be asynchronous, am I saying that right? Asynchronous?
Yes.
Everything had to be, it was just all had to be separated. Kids didn't have technology though, so teaching computer science was a struggle. Teaching computers science without computers is possible, and there are some things you can do for that. There's a lot of sort of unplugged algorithmic things you can do, but it's not, of course, ideal. So that was a big struggle. For the more general subjects though, a lot of families were having, for math, they were giving their families a few problems to work with a week, and then literally having their parents just take a picture of it and emailing the teacher the picture of the math that they did, and that's really the only way they could get around it. We didn't do any worksheets. Everything kind of happened a little bit too quickly with that. So yeah, that was a struggle. Coming into the next school year, though, we are planning for more devices. So hopefully we're going to be able to give all our families internet and at least one actual device, laptop per family. Hopefully we can get that kind of corrected. Any questions from your end?
No, I mean, these are familiar issues the teachers are having. We're struggling. Trying to find like downloadable content kids can use offline just in case they don't have access, and then the things like that. It's definitely a struggle.
Absolutely.
Gosh, we sure appreciate all you shared with us, though. So thank you.
Yep, I hope that can be valuable.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. Please hit that subscribe button so you'll continue to hear about new resources for the classroom.
If you have a resource to share or want us to find a resource about something in particular, tweet us at Purdue SOS or email us at k12science@purdue.edu.
Boiler up!
Hammer down.